Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Glory Glory Man United podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kyle Quinn, and joining me today is Jay from Stretford Paddock. How's it going, Jay?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good to see you again, Kyle. Just enjoying the sunny here in Manchester. Can you see that? Look at that. Sunshine. What's going on?
Yeah, it makes a welcome change. The sun not really been shining much at Old Trafford recently.
Nice. Nicely done. Nice little segue there. Very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, but hopefully there is sun on the horizon for Ruben Amorim and Manchester United, and certainly the fixture list is not going to make it easy for him. We're playing the last season's top four in our first eight matches next season. Um, he needs to get off to a difficult start or after a good start. Otherwise, he's going to be under severe pressure, I feel, given how bad last season was. And, he's still going to get time from the supporters because the squad from last season is not his team. But once he gets a few signings in the summer, he'll be expected to deliver and significantly improve on that 15th place finish. No one's expecting us to win the league, but we're aiming for top six, I would have thought, especially if we're getting the caliber of players that we seem to be getting with Kuna has already arrived, of course, and Mambumo is supposed to join as well, which we're hoping. So Brian Mambumo, we'll just talk about him now. He got 20 league goals for Brentford last season and 7 assists. If he could bring that to Old Trafford, we will definitely improve on our 44 goals from last season, Jay.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, look, I like Brian Mbumo. I think he's a quality player. You look at what he's done at Brentford. Pretty much since Ivan Toney got suspended, he sort of was when I started noticing him because he stepped up massively for them, and I thought they struggled when Toney was suspended, and they didn't. A big part of the reason behind that was because of Brian Mbeumo and his goals and assists, and just the eye test when you watch him. He's a confident player. He has that little bit of almost nonchalance about him. I say he plays the game unfazed. He's a weird mixture because I think there's similar traits in Cunha in the sense that he can be physical, he can be aggressive, he's got a bit of pace about him. Yet he almost has a sort of relaxed air to the way it's like he's just enjoying himself, and I like that. And I think he'd do very well at Manchester United. And I think if you put him into the United front three, or the United attack, whether that's as a 10 or maybe even you try him as a striker, then it's going to help us get goals. Especially when you look at how much we struggled last season. Rasmus Højlund had as bad a season as I can remember any attacker having for Manchester United, to be honest. He was just pretty woeful. Garnacho, I think his numbers were a bit better, but on the whole, there was a lot of poor performances there, and it looks like he's going to go. And then Ahmad did well, but he was injured for a little bit. Xerxes, he's good to watch, but doesn't really get you that many goals. I think his numbers are actually worse than Hoyland's. So someone like Mbumo coming in alongside Mateus Cunha, you've got two players there that I think if you're just going off last season's numbers, was it around 35 goals, and then probably about another 30 assists between them as well, maybe a little bit less. So you think if you throw in that into the mix, 60 or 50 or goal involvements, then even if they were to get, two-thirds of that Manchester United, that'd be a long way to go. That'd go a long way, sorry, to improving Manchester United's attack. So yeah, I like Bruno. I think we just need to get that deal done because we're at the stage now where there's so much talk, there's so much noise, there's so much news around him coming to United and how he wants to come to United and how United want him. We put a bid in and all the rest of it. If we didn't get him now, it'd feel like a massive sort of fumble by Ineos.
Yeah, it looks like he's already turned down Newcastle, and Spurs have made a late move for him with Thomas Frank moving there. But I think it sounds like it's too late. The noises we're getting is that he has his heart set on going to Old Trafford, just like Kuna. It's just United need to agree the deal with Brentford. It seems as if United are g- verbally making offers to see what they will accept because once they make a formal offer, then the second one they want to make sure it's accepted so this doesn't drag on. So of course they need to decide on the structure of the payments and the add-ons and all that. So it's taking a wee bit of time. I think we were spoiled with how quick the Kuna deal got done. And then we thought David Ornstein brought out the news about Mbumo, and we thought that was going to be done in a couple of days as well. But back to reality with the transfers dragging out a wee bit. But it sounds as if he's going to Old Trafford because you might have seen the interview at the F1 last weekend,
Yeah,
and he said before they started that he didn't want to talk about his future, but he was asked about Thomas Frank going to Spurs, and it was interesting the way he put it. He said he wishes Thomas all the best at Tottenham. That sounds to me like a man who's not going to Tottenham himself, unless he's a pretty good liar. But yeah, I think he's come to Old Trafford.
yeah. I watched that interview and we spoke about it on Stretford Paddock on my news on Monday, and it did feel little bit more like I wish him well, but I won't be with him kind of thing. I mean, you never know. But the more importantly, I think all the consistent news reports from people that you can trust indicate that Spurs have sort of given up on the idea of getting him, which makes me feel like they weren't really in for him, or they weren't willing to pay what Brentford want, or B, they just know the player's got his heart set on Manchester United and it's fruitless trying to get him to go to Spurs. But it definitely doesn't feel like there's much happening between United and Spurs. I was worried at first when there was some reports about that, but I'm not worried anymore. I think that this is Manchester United's deal, and I think it'll happen.
I have to say, I'm enjoying the piss that United are boiling by signing Kuna and Mbeumo because a lot of the teams that are in Europe thought that these players would turn down Man United and go to their club. A lot of frustrated Newcastle fans. I've seen Aston Villa fans complaining about it online, and obviously Tottenham fans as well. You just cannot believe that players are choosing to go to 15th place Man United. But they don't realise is that we are still a massive name, a massive club, one of the biggest in the world. You know, it's a bit like the New York Yankees. You know, it's a massive brand. You know, the people with a lot of history that people want to play for. Same with the Fiore F1 team. You know, they haven't been doing well in recent years, but Lewis Hamilton still wanted to drive for them, and other world champions always they all want to be in the Ferrari car before they retire. So United are kind of the same as that. You know, it's still a very, very attractive name to world class players.
Yeah, definitely. People forget that, and people like treat United as though we're some little small club with no fans and no history, and no academy and no good players at all. Like, look, I'm not going to pretend that this isn't one of the worst Manchester United teams I've seen in terms of the performances and results, because it is 15th in the Premier League. I've never seen us finish that low in the top flight. Um, and also the amount of losses we've had, the amount of bad results, losing a final to Spurs is, there's no excuse, inexcusable. But we're still the biggest club in England. We're still one of the biggest clubs in the world. You've still got some quality players there. You look throughout that team. You look at like some Mateus De Ligt, Lenny Yoro, Bruno Fernandes, Amad Diallo, or Amad, I should say. Look at Kobe Mainu. There's quality there. Mateus Cunha just come in. He's a good player. Aiden Heaven is a very good young player. Cheeto, I think, has got a bright future ahead of him. You look at the academy, the amount of players that are coming through there. You look at even in our dire straits, we've still got a little bit of money to spend as well. So, and also, 70 odd thousand fans through the gate every week. The history of the club. Like, there's a lot of reasons to want to go to Manchester United. And if you're being realistic, are you going to come to Manchester United and win a title next season? No. Are you going to play in Europe next season? No, you're not. But there's every chance to believe you can be part of the team that gets to those places, gets into Europe, gets challenging for titles again. That can happen. And I think that if you're a young player in your mid 20s, you might look at it and go, look, if I sign a 3 or 4 year deal at Manchester United, or even a 5 year deal at Manchester United, there's every chance within those 5 years I'll win silverware, I'll challenge back up the right end of the table, and I'll play in front of, record or the highest sort of capacity crowds in the Premier League every week, because we've seen that happen in the past.
Yeah, in the last decade or so, we've won two FA Cups, two League Cups, and a Europa League. Should have been at least two, but uh, for most clubs, that would be a golden era. For United, that's dire straits. You know,
It's
that's the
true.
difference.
It's true. I mean, look at Newcastle. They had a parade the other week or a few months ago now because they won the Carabao. Newcastle are a big club. They spent a lot of money. To them, that was their first trophy in 60 years or whatever it was. They're absolutely buzzing because that to them was unreal. We won the Carabao Cup, which was good. I was there in the final. It was a big deal, but it was our first trophy in 6 years. There's a difference. And then we followed it up winning the FA Cup the following year. You look at Spurs, who obviously have won the Europa League, and again, I'm not knocking them. It's an amazing achievement. They beat us in the final, so it's frustrating. from a United point of view. But again, that's their first trophy in what, 17 years. There's all these clubs that might look down the nose at Manchester United or like laugh at Manchester United, but to many of them, how long have Aston Villa gone without a trophy? How long have almost every team in the Premier League, bar maybe City and Liverpool and Chelsea, gone without silver? Even Arsenal, who've done very well under Mikel Arteta. When's the last time they won a trophy? Won it like 6 years ago or 5 years ago? So the clubs that might be, laughing and taking a mick out of Manchester United, like you say, a lot of them haven't really got a leg to stand on when it comes to what they've done during that time. And look, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Manchester United, within 2 years, if we get our transfers right, we get nurturing the academy in the right way, can be challenging for the top honours. We've seen it at other clubs. Look at what Arsenal did under Arteta when he took over from Unai Emery. They went, was it 3 seasons where they finished? I think it was eighth and fifth. People looked at that and gone, loads of people that sound like he's not the right guy, but he's making transfers, he's getting signed, he's changing the culture of the club, and then they get their act together. And now they're challenging, I think is it 3 successive years they finished second. Manchester United obviously finished 15th, which is a lot lower than eighth. But if we get the next window right, if we get the right players coming through the academy, with some of the players we've already got, we can keep them fit and ingratiate some of the other ones that are coming into the squad a little bit better, then there's no reason to believe why Manchester United. I think Manchester United could be challenging for Europe next season. I don't think that's beyond the realms of possibility. And then the season after that, who knows?
Yeah, I don't think there's much between the sixth and 16th really in the Premier League. It's so competitive. I think you can jump up 10 places very easily if you recruit well. Um, I was laughing at an Aston Villa fan on Twitter. He was saying that he views players who go to Man United now as the same as going to Saudi Arabia, just going for the money. And you're like, I having a laugh. I mean, you just alluded to it there. Aston Villa's last trophy was the Coca-Cola Cup in 1995, I think. So does he really expect players like Kuna and Mbumo to choose Aston Villa over Man United just because we had one horrendous season? It's just other fans don't seem to understand how big we are, which is it's quite laughable because they seem to think that players should go to them and not us. And the jealousy over Kuna and Mbumo is quite funny, and I'm enjoying it. Uh, so I want to talk to you about Hugo Ekitike as well. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that right or not, but everyone will know who I'm talking about.
That's how I pronounce it. So if you know, we're both wrong together.
So he got 15 Bundesliga goals, but he has 22 in all comps, uh, including four in Europe, and he got one fantastic finish against Tottenham in the quarter final. Was they played against each other at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Wonderful goal from outside the box. If anyone hasn't seen it, check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, he does seem to have a great close control, great touch on him. As obviously he's strong. He's 6'3". Um, but he's definitely not worth 100 million euros. He he'd need to be hitting 30 league goals to be worth that kind of money, and he's not quite there yet. My opinion is that Frankfurt heard of United's interest, so the reason the bar very high, hoping that then the United and them can meet somewhere in the middle. They're probably hoping to get 80 million euros or something, but I think even that's too much. I think if we pay them 50 million euros plus add-ons, then that might be a more realistic deal. Now I wouldn't even pay 100 million euros for Osimhen, and he's almost a guarantee of goals with the record that he's got in multiple different leagues. So yeah, I think there's just no way United should pay that money. But he seems to be the front runner at the minute, though. Given that Victor Gyökeres has said that he prefers Arsenal. That being said, Arsenal are more interested in Benjamin Sesko. So Gyökeres could be left in a situation where either has to go to United with no European football or stay at Sporting Lisbon.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does come down to that. And I don't even know how keen United are on Gyökeres. I know there's been reports, but it feels a little bit more like it's just people going, well, he played for Ruben Amorim. Ruben Amorim knows him. He scored 52 goals this season. United need goals. He's available for a price that isn't ridiculous. Going to United makes a lot of sense, but Have we made a bid? No. Have we got the money there? Maybe if we sell some players, but certainly not right now. And is there a desire from Manchester United to get that deal done? I'm not sure there is. So I think with Gyökeres, I would be surprised, and I'm saying this on the Transfers Live, I think it was last night, if United actually ended up trying to get him last minute, almost deadline day. If because his relationship with Sporting seems to have soured a little bit. If no one else is in for him, maybe Juve could be in for him, or could end up buying him. But if Juve don't buy him, and if he's still at the Sporting by deadline day, maybe Manchester United could tempt Sporting with a bid closer to 50 million. Maybe they could say, look, we'll give you 50 million for a player that doesn't want to be there, and you're going to get less than that if you keep holding him for another year. So that might be a scenario that works. I agree with you on Rossiman. I think out of the players we've been linked with, he's guaranteed goals. Ekitike, I'm not overly keen. I think he looks all right. He's obviously got a lot of talent, still relatively young, but his numbers are decent. I've watched a few bits and pieces of him, and there's a player there, but there's also someone who can miss chances. And I just worry that will the scrutiny you get at Old Trafford, the scrutiny you get playing for Manchester United, the expectation, is he going to rise to that occasion or is he going to go, struggle? So out of the three, Ekitike, Osimhen, and Gyökeres, Ekitike would probably be the least favourite one for me. I think the only reason that deal could happen, or it's one or two reasons, is one, he seems to be quite keen on United. I think he's a boyhood United fan. And two, there was talk that maybe United could stagger that deal over 4 seasons. So it's not 80 million at once, it's 20 million over, each year for 4 years, which would make it more attractive. The only issue there is if he doesn't do what he's meant to do at United, you've then got an 80 million pound player trying to shift off your books. And we all know how difficult that can be.
Yeah, given what has happened with Hoyland, it would be a risk signing another young striker who's not the finished article. But United seem to have inquired about him, and they've been asked 100 million euros, which it's just not happening. He's just not worth that kind of money at this stage. But yeah, he would be third in my list as well. I would probably go with Osimhen, given that he's done it in stronger leagues than Victor Gyökeres. He's done it in the Championship and the Portuguese league, whereas Osimhen has done it in Serie A, Liga, and in Turkey as well, and of course in European competitions, as is Gyökeres. But yeah, those two would excite me the most, and if I had to choose, it would probably be Osimhen. He seems to be available because he's turned down Saudi Arabia as well. So his wages will be astronomical, I think, but that should be no problem to United. They're used to paying out those kind of wages, and he would be worth it because he is the finished article, and he would be a guarantee of goals, in my opinion. He got 35 in 40 games last season for Galatasaray. Those are phenomenal numbers. So I would certainly be taking a punt on him if we can.
Yeah, I like Osimhen. I think he's an exciting player. He's the type of player that scores goals and sticks dead in where the fans would love him. Like you say, scoring those goals for Napoli is at a higher level than perhaps some of the other players we've been linked with. I think he'd be a fan's favourite, and he's the one that feels like the most sort of reliable one out of the ones been linked with. I know Gyökeres has scored more goals of late, but Osimhen feels like he's got that pedigree where you go, yeah, if I had to bank on someone scoring loads of goals at United, it would be him. But the numbers look almost untenable in terms of wages and fee. Again, though, it might be an 11th hour bid. I wouldn't be surprised if United did something last minute if one of these players is available.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player that Napoli want to get rid of, so they can't be demanding, a huge transfer fee. So yeah, it wouldn't be unusual for United to get their most important signing in August, right at the end of the window. So that's the way it's frustrating because you want to have your main signings into the door before pre-season, but it doesn't always work out that way. Another thing I wanted to put to you was, so it looks like Mbeumo, if we sign him, and Kuna will occupy the number 10 position, so we expect then Bruno to be more of a midfielder then in that scenario. Um, if we don't sign a striker, which I hope we do, it'd be interesting to see Xerxes as the number 9, with Mbeumo and Kuna playing behind him. He could drop deep and play them two in behind. I think he- like you said, he's got a lot of footballing ability, doesn't score enough goals, but he could really be that Roberto Firmino for United alongside Mbeumo and Kuna playing the Mane and Salah roles. I hate to make that comparison because I know it's Liverpool, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get that, and I've sort of made that a similar comparison myself. Not in just the style or whatever, but you can have a striker who doesn't get you loads of goals, but brings in players around him. Now, the obvious sort of pushback on that would be: are we saying that Brian Mbomo is going to get Mo Salah numbers? Are we saying that Mateus Cunha is going to get Sadio Mane numbers, which is the two players that he had around him, Roberto Firmino? Because those two guys, especially Salah, were mega prolific. It's a lot to ask. Probably not, if I'm being honest. I'd be very surprised if Brian Mbomo hit 30 odd goals, whatever, in the Premier League, as whatever Salah did that season when they were all flying. But he could be, he could get 20 goals again, or he could get around that. And Mateus Cunha could weigh in with similar numbers, and um, Joshua Zirkzee himself could get, oh, I don't know, double figures. And then between the three, then you've got uh, enough to sort of be happy with that. If you got, say, 50 goals or four, even 40 odd goals between your three attackers, you might go, okay, with Bruno Fernandes weighing in with, say, another 10, all of a sudden there's goals in that team. It's looking better. It's just, realistically, have we seen enough from Xerxes to say that he's going to do that? Maybe, probably, maybe not. I don't know, is the honest answer. We've seen some glimpses and signs that there's a player there and he can bring others in around him and he's got that confidence and that swagger. Um, he can score goals. He has scored goals, not many for Manchester United, though. And he can bring in players. Could that work? I think it could. I just don't know. I'm a little bit wary of this whole 9.5 thing because I think that's nonsensical. I've been watching football for 40 years. I've never heard of a 9.5. You're either a 10 or a 9. Let's not kid ourselves. And I think he's more of a 10 than a 9. However, maybe there's a system that works with Xerxes and Bomo and Cunha. Maybe there's a system that you can change around there and you can have Ahmad and Bomo and Cunha, or maybe you have Mount and Bomo and Cunha, or however, a combination of three of all the players I've mentioned. Maybe Common Mainu can play as a 10. Maybe you push Bruno Fernandes further up. We see him play as a false 9. I don't know. There's lots and lots of different permutations with what you can do United's attack. I just feel that you've got Mateus Cunha and you've got Brian Mbumo. You've got goals there, which helps. And maybe you don't need a striker that's as prolific. Maybe there's still a future Rasmus Højlund. I doubt it. What I've seen this season, I think it's been pretty woeful. But I'm not sure the manager thinks that. I don't know what the manager's thinking with Rasmus Højlund, whether he still feels he can get a tune out of him. Maybe Chido Obi Mine, or Chido Obi, I should say, as he's now called, gets more minutes next season. He's had about, is it a dozen games, whatever, for Manchester United, dozen appearances. Maybe he steps that up next season and we see more of him. There could be a combination that works. And maybe it's like you said, with Joshua Zirkzee fulfilling that Roberto Firmino role. I'd feel a lot better if we had a prolific striker. I'd feel a lot more relaxed if we had an Osimhen or Gyökeres or even a Ekitike. But I don't know if that's the way Ruben Amorim and Manchester United feel. I don't know if that's what they're able to do this summer, because bringing in three attackers, which is what we'd be saying if we brought in Mbumo, Cunha and a striker, that might be more than they were banking on doing. I don't know.
Yes, I would love a number 9 as well, and I think that's important. But I'm more than happy to have Joshua Zirkzee as a squad player because I think he's got bags of ability, and to have him there as an option would be really good. I wouldn't be selling him in this window. I'd be like to see him for another season, because he was a loss when he got injured towards the end of the season. He came back for the final and only played 20 minutes or so. But
Yeah.
yeah, but given how bad Hoyland was, then and losing Xerxes was a bit of a blow. And yeah, I thought he was superb against Newcastle in the game that he got injured in. Remember that 1-2 he played with Bruno? That should have been a goal. That would have been goal of the season if they'd scored that. Uh, yeah, it was a link-up play between Ericsson, Bruno, and Xerxes, and then Xerxes' shot was saved by Morten Dubravka. I think that would have been a magnificent goal. I don't know if you remember or not. But then he went
Yeah,
on
no, I do.
and then he went on that run where he got injured. Remember, he took it past about five Newcastle players and then he pulled his hamstring. Yeah,
Typical that.
yeah. Uh, Another area of importance for United is the goalkeeper. I think 99% of Man United fans accept that we need a new goalkeeper. But what we've been hearing from Samuel Luckhurst in the last couple of days is that he feels that Onana will be staying this summer. Those are the noises that he is getting. There has been many offers, and it makes sense because not many clubs will be willing to pay the asking price of 30 million and the wages that he's on. You'd be looking for a Saudi club to come in for him. Those are the ones that can afford that. Uh, doesn't look like it's going to happen at the moment. What is more likely is that what do you call him, Bayendier will be moved on, and United will bring in a keeper to challenge Onana. And I think that's what, if Onana's not going to move on this summer, what we really need to do is to bring in a number two that is capable of being a number one. Like the scenario we had a few years ago with De Gea as a number one and Dean Henderson as the backup, we need to be bringing in a Dean Henderson like goalkeeper this summer. Like, for example, we play Arsenal in the first game of the season. Onana drops a clanger, costs us the points. Then the next game he does the same, and we're like, we can't continue with this for another 36 games. We need to have a goalkeeper that can come in and take his place.
Yeah, I do worry about Andre Onana, and I do worry that if Manchester United are going to get our house in order and bring in strikers and attackers that are going to score goals, do we need to sort the other end of the pitch out? Is it almost pointless if you've got a goalkeeper who just isn't up to it? He's had 2 seasons now, Onana, and what worries me is a similar thing with Andre Onana, with Rasmus Højlund, is I think his second season was arguably worse than his first, and that isn't great. You want him to be moving forward, and I don't know if he is, and I don't know if Onana is ever going to be that guy that we need him to be. One thing going in his favour might be the fact that we can't just buy and sell everyone. We have limits, and the focus seems to be elsewhere in the United team. We seem to be after a midfielder, although we haven't been linked with a lot. I think the common sort of thought is that United will be in for a number 8 type midfielder. We certainly, are trying to get the deal from Bomodun, obviously another attacker, possibly a striker. Maybe as well, we're looking at a wing back. We've also still had been linked with a few defenders too. So he might end up sticking around because of that. But I am concerned with on Joe Nana and his form. It has been bad. And you have to look at him and go, is he really a Manchester United goalkeeper? Is he really someone who has that confidence and that reliability to be in net for Manchester United? And I'm not so sure he has. And I think you're right. I think he might end up in a scenario where if he stays around, if he has a bad start to the season, United are sort of looking at each other or scrambling around trying to get a replacement in. And you don't want to be in that situation where the season starts, you've got a goalkeeper you've not got any faith in.
I know when I watched the FA Cup final, I was wishing that we still had Dean Henderson to come in and take his place.
Yeah, did well, didn't he?
Definitely did. Apart from the fact that he should have been sent off, but yeah, he
That
played
was
well.
even better. I like that one against City.
It's not often decisions go against them, but it did on that occasion. Yeah, we need to bring in a goalkeeper that's, a Sergio Romero or Dean Henderson, someone that's capable of being a number one. That if we need to take Onana out of the team, because Bay and Deer is as bad as Onana, let's be honest, maybe even worse. I can see why Amorim was reluctant to play Bay and Deer that often. Only in meaningless games did he play really, and you've seen why with the mistakes he was making. Look at the mistake that he made in the last game of the season against Aston Villa that he got away with. Villa should have been awarded a goal there because he wasn't in control of the ball. That was a horrendous mistake, and he made one against Newcastle as well, of course, giving the ball away. So yeah, he needs to be moved on, and he should be easy to move on because he's not on big wages, and we only signed him for like 4 or 5 million. So I imagine United won't be looking much for him. So that should be an easy deal to do. Not sure who's interested though, but yeah, we need to bring in a number two that's capable of being number one. Like a Riemann van der guy. I'm going back quite a few years now.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
any number two who's capable of being a number one will be number one. Do you know, like with Onana, I feel like
yeah,
it's only a matter of time. You come in and you've got your mindset. If United bring him in, Binday was always coming in as a number two. But if you're coming in and the manager's saying to you, look, I want you to challenge Onana for that number one spot, then you're basically coming in to replace him, aren't you? I get your point. I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think that you've got to have that mindset of, look, that's my spot. I'm getting it. And if Onana does make a mistake, I don't think he's got enough credit in the bank for the manager to stick with him.
yeah. If a new goalkeeper comes in and Onana still plays against Arsenal, it's only a matter of time before the new goalkeeper becomes the number one. I
I
agree
think
with you.
so. I think so. Yeah.
So just on the fixtures, very difficult start for United. Arsenal at home, and then I think we've got Fulham away, and then Burnley at home, and then I think we've got City in September, and I think we've got Liverpool in October, and Chelsea also as well in that period. So very tough playing the top four in the first 8 games. I feel as if the other games around that against Burnley and Sunderland and Fulham, we absolutely have to be getting maximum points in those games, and we need to be winning a couple of the big games as well. Not We can't afford to lose all those, or Amorim's going to come under huge pressure. You're going to see the media getting their knives out. You're going to see the online fan base getting on his back, calling for his head. I know the fans in the stadium will stick by him, but generally you want to get off to a good start in the season. I know we don't have ambitions to win the league this season because that's unrealistic, but generally the team that wins the league gets off to a good start. And I know we're probably not going to do that, but we do want to get off to a good start. We don't want to be losing four of our first 8 matches.
Yeah, and I think, look, if I'm Ruben Amorim, I look at that Arsenal game as an opportunity because remember last season we played Fulham on the opening day. We weren't terribly convincing. We won, but no one treated that as though it was proof that Eric Ten Hag was smashing it. It was like, yeah, we won, but we weren't great, and it's against Fulham, and we should be beaten anyway. What do you do? If you beat Arsenal, there's a little bit more to it than that. It's a good test here to see where you're at because you're playing one of the best teams in the league. They're beatable. Arsenal are a beatable team. They're not this team that never loses, especially away from home. So United can beat them. And if you do beat them, then all of a sudden people start believing in you because you've just beaten a team that finished second. So if I'm Ruben Amorim, I'm looking at this and going, look, we need to get a result here. We need to look at this as a positive. Don't be scared of Arsenal. They should be scared of us coming to Old Trafford. I went to the game Old Trafford against Arsenal last season. I thought we did very well in that second half in particular. It was a little bit annoying that we didn't get all 3 points. So yeah, I'd be up for it. I'd be well up for it. I'm up for it as a fan, and I think we need to be up for it as a team and as a club. And I don't sort of buy into this negativity and this worry and it's like, oh no, we've got Arsenal first game of the season. Look, they're a good team, but we're at home and we should be beating anyone at home. United should be going into every home game thinking this is a game we should be winning because it wasn't that long ago. I think Eric Ten Hag's first season where we didn't. We beat everyone. I think except Brighton and Newcastle at home. I think our record at home in the league was the best of anyone in the Premier League. We beat City, we beat Liverpool, we beat Arsenal, we beat Barcelona. It became a right fortress. And I think we've got to get back to that mindset and get back to making teams feel like when they come to Old Trafford, they'll be lucky if they get anything out of the game.
Yeah, obviously Liverpool away and City away, those are bonus fixtures. Anything we get there is a bonus. Even though last season we got 4 points from those two fixtures and should have got six if Maguire had scored at the end at Anfield. We deserved the points there. Our performances were, especially at Anfield, was a brilliant performance. At City, we obviously it was the Ahmad show at the end of the game, winning us the match there. It was a very, very poor game, but we got all 3 points. Um, but yeah, we should be targeting the home games against Arsenal and Chelsea at the start of the season. And if we have Mbumo and Kuna in attack in that first game against Arsenal, I'd be confident at home that United could get a result in that match. If you remember when Ten Hag first arrived 3 years ago, we beat Arsenal at home at the very start of the season. I think Anthony scored on his debut in that game. So
Yeah, how was it that game? Yeah.
we're capable of beating Arsenal at home. I feel, yeah, especially with their a new look attack as it seems. And yeah, I would be reasonably confident of getting at least a draw in that game, if not better. So yeah, I don't envisage Arsenal beating us in that game. I
No.
think we'll get a decent result in that match, and um, that'll set us up nicely for the fixtures against Fulham and Burnley. We started off last season very poorly. We want to avoid that completely, and yeah, I think we won the first game against Fulham. Yeah, Xerxes scored, but then we had that really unlucky scenario against Brighton. You remember when uh, Garnacho thought he had scored, but Xerxes had slid in from an offside position and it hit him before it went over the line, and it was ruled offside, and then we ended up losing the game from there, and that was unlucky. So, but yeah. hopefully United can get off to a good start. Another thing that I forgot about is that United will actually have an extra game in August because we're going to be in the second round of the League Cup because we're not in Europe. We're not used to playing that fixture. If the last time we played in it was when we lost 4-0 to MK Dons under Van Gaal, but hopefully
Brilliant.
we can avoid a repeat of that. Um, but which brings me on to the fact that we should be targeting a domestic cup next season because there's going to be no need to rest players because we know European football. Most weeks there's going to be 7 days between games. So I think should be playing a strong sides in the League Cup and in the FA Cup and targeting winning at least one of those. I think there's because Gio Amorim will want to obviously finish as high as possible in the league, but I think he'll want to win a trophy as soon as he possibly can.
Yeah, you think so. I mean, you should be able to have a squad for it. I think hopefully we see some of the younger players as well that were there or thereabouts in the first team last season, maybe get some minutes in those competitions if they're not going out on loan. Maybe you see Harry Amas or Tyler Frederickson or maybe even Jack Morehouse, someone like that coming into the fold a bit more. We don't know. I don't know whether some of those players are going to go out on loan. Don't know what the situation is with all of them. But the ones that don't, the young players that don't, you can have them come in. Maybe you have a few other players who aren't always starting every week at Manchester United. Is Casemiro going to be starting every week? Is Mason Mount? Is Kobe Mainoo? I don't know. So that you feel like there's players there that are still first team or first team squad players who might not start every week. Maybe the cup competitions is where they get more minutes as well. So even though we're not in Europe, I think we can still challenge. But for me, I'd want to see us move up the table. I think if I'm Amrim, I'm like, look, the league is the bread and butter. We need to get back up that table. We need to get Manchester United in the European places because I think just as a mindset as well, if you're up there, you're winning most games week in, week out in the league, which is what you do, you play every week in the league, then it just gets you used to that idea of look, Manchester United are on the right path.
Did Omar Barada say that the minimum target was top six? I think,
I mean, yeah, look, if you're aiming top six, you may as well aim for Champions League. Fifth could
yeah.
be Champions League. So why say, oh, what, get sixth, get fifth? That's Champions League. I just want to see Manchester United being involved in those conversations, being right up there and winning more often than we're losing. That'd be a start.
So we've got Kuna. If we get Mbeumo over the line and we get the world class striker, do you think there's a chance we could do a Leicester here and win the league?
You maybe should ask Adam McCall that, my colleague. He likes that sort of thing. Um, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, but I don't see it happening. I don't see Manchester United going from 15th to win the title. Look at the other teams have strengthened. Liverpool are about to sign Florian Wirtz for 150 million euros. I think they've got Frimpong as well, and Kirkes coming in. Two fantastic fullbacks or wing backs, if you want to call Frimpong that. You look at City, who've gone turbo in the transfer market this summer. They brought in out Nore and one or two others as well. Rain Shirky, obviously, we know from playing Leon. They're not resting on the laurels. Arsenal are about to buy Benjamin Sesko. That's going to massively improve them. Chelsea are always going to be busy in the transfer market. This summer's going to be no different. So you're looking at the four or five teams improving already from last season. I know obviously Liverpool lost Trent Alexander-Arnold, but I actually think if they buy Verts, Frimpong and Kirkes are actually stronger this season than they were last season. So I don't see Manchester United winning the title. I don't see us being able to go from 15th to first, especially when those teams I mentioned have strengthened well. But I can definitely see us being there or thereabouts in that top four or five conversation. I don't think that's too much to ask from a Manchester United team that won't have a game, 2 games a week. I think for most weeks we'll have one, and that can be a huge boost. Yeah, I just think Leicester is sort of that thing of a one-off, an outlier that I don't think we're going to see again. I don't think we're going to see anytime soon. Anyway.
Yeah, we can't win the league with Onana in goal, and I don't think our midfield is strong enough yet to be winning the league. And it's strange that we're now going to play a wing back system, or we have been doing so since November, and we might not even sign a wing back in this window. And you just mentioned Jeremy Frimpong and Kirkes there; they would have been perfect for Amorim's system, but they're going to Liverpool, which is
Yeah,
frustrating, isn't it?
it is. Yeah, it is. But this is where we're at, I'm afraid.
Do you think Ahmad will be the right wing back next season?
If we get those two players, if Mbumo's over the line and Cunha, then yeah, I could see that. I mean, I could see Ahmad being a wing back, 100%.
And who do you think will get the left wing back slot? Do you think you stick with Dorgu, or do you think Diego Leon or Harry Amos could come into?
I think Dorgu would be a shout there. I think Patrick Dorgu can do a job there. Um, he's done quite well since he's come in, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him on that left, and then maybe Ahmad on the right, or maybe still Diogo Dalot. He seems quite like Dalot. But I think as well, Leon coming in, Ariamas is there as well. You've got a few options. We might even end up buying another wing back too. So it'd be good to have options. I think that's what's been lacking over the years for Manchester United over recent years, anyway.
Yeah, it looks like we're going to have a lot of options in attack, especially at number 10. But if Bruno's going to play in midfield, who's going to partner him? I think actually perfect partner for him in terms of who we've got would be Collier, given his skill set. He's a number 6, but maybe it's too early to be talking about him being a member of the starting 11. I just don't think that uh, Menu and Bruno complement each other very well in a two. And I think Casemiro is past it now in terms of like he was still good in Europe for United, but what happened as soon as we came up against the English opposition again in the final, he went missing. So with no European football, I think there's no point to Casemiro anymore. So I'd like to move him on. But yeah, I think Collier is probably I think he could become a number 6 for United. I just need to see a wee bit more of a sample size because we haven't seen that much of him. But he has impressed me when he has played for United. What do you think?
Yeah, he's a good player. I think the jury's out. It's too soon to tell for me whether he's going to be a first team player for Manchester United. Lots of energy, gets around the pitch very well. Maybe that can work in a two if you've got someone who's a little bit better with the ball alongside him. Maybe him and Mainu could be an option. I think it might be an option longer term if we keep hold of both of them. But I'd like to see a little bit more of him, like you said, because he got an injury as well in last season, which was a shame because I think he got an injury at a time when he would have been getting more minutes. I just feel it's a big ask to play in a Manchester United midfield at the age of 20, 21, whatever he is. So we'll have to wait and see. But I like his energy, certainly. His energy is fantastic. And that's what we've been missing in the middle of the park, a little bit of energy.
Yeah, could definitely see him being the Thorn Fletcher of this Man United team. Um,
If you're giving up with your guy, if you're not fancying him, not for you.
so you're
Man,
not.
Manuel, you guy, you're not a fan.
I completely forgot about him. So I guess that says it all, really, doesn't
I wonder what you were laughing at me for then. I was like, you just laughed. I said, if you're giving up with your guy, you just laughed. Like,
it? No, I thought you were joking, saying have you given up on Collier because I compared him to Darren
no,
Fletcher?
you guy, because
Yeah.
you didn't mention him. You mentioned Mainu, you mentioned Collier, you mentioned Casemiro, you mentioned Bruno. You just didn't mention Manuel Ugarte at all. And I just
Well,
curious if you didn't fancy him.
well, I tell you what, Amorim seemed to like he'd fallen out of favor at the end of last season. There, he wasn't picking him in the biggest games, so uh, he completely lost his form at the end of last season, and Amorim had dropped him. So I just I just think he's a very limited player. Okay, he's a ball winner, uh, he, and but I don't think he has the energy to get around the pitch. I don't think he's that mobile, and his passing isn't great. So he's okay as a squad player, but for me, I wouldn't have him in my first 11,
Fair enough.
and I think we overpaid for him. Uh, and PSG didn't miss him, did they? they
No,
I would
no,
prefer.
that's true. I mean, to be fair, John Evans has gone there and absolutely smashed it. He's been phenomenal. Um, I think again with your guy, there's a player there. We'll have to wait and see. Big season for him next season. Big. The second season is always the big one. And when I mentioned like Hoyland and Onan have gone backwards, I think if your guy does kick on, then there's every reason to think he can have a very bright future at United, be an important player for us.
And something to keep in mind is that Amorim won the title at Sporting in 2021. That summer, Ugarte came in. They had 2 seasons without winning the league. Ugarte leaves to go to PSG. Then 2024, Amorim wins the title again. So he never actually won the title with Ugarte in his side.
I mean, that's yeah. You could argue that's bad luck, but yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, just not a great start, is it, for poor Manuel, the guy? It really isn't.
No, no. Oh, I hope he proves me wrong, but yeah, I'm not his biggest fan if I'm being honest. So
Fair
just
enough.
finally, I want to get your prediction. Where do you think United will finish in this Premier League season?
I'm going to go sixth. I think we can get into the Europa League spot. I think that's the Europa League spot. And I think it's a step in the right direction. And I think if you go into the sixth spot, it just means you've won enough games in the Premier League, I think, to ease the pressure on the manager. New players coming in. I would go higher, but I have to look at the opposition as well. I have to look at other teams. And I think, in all honesty, there's probably at least four teams that are going to be stronger than us, if not a fifth as well. So I think sixth would be a decent sort of return to not obviously the glory years at United finishing sixth, but it brought us back into that sort of mindset and that frame of all right, we're back in Europe, we're back at the right end of the table. And then I think 26, 27 season is when you start going for the Champions League spots and getting the Champions League spots. I think you should still go from this season, but I think we might end up finishing a little bit short. The season after that, you can kick on. And I think we've still got a lot of good young players as well that can be better in the next few years. So I think sixth spot would be realistic for me. I think it's doable.
I'm going to go slightly higher. I'm going to say fifth. That is provided we get Mambumo, a striker, and a goalkeeper. Then I think we maybe we'll finish fifth. Yeah, so I'm going to be
Fair enough.
optimistic. So thanks, Jay, for coming on as always.
Always a pleasure, Carl. Always love chatting to you and keep up the good work, man. We'll chat again soon.
No worries. All right, I'll see you later.
See you later, brother. Take care.